Hey everybody, Adam Davidson, RadCast for Tuesday, January 9, 2023. Psalm 41 is where we'll be today, a very interesting one. It sounds like a quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Just listen to what the psalmist writes. Blessed are those who have regard for the weak. The Lord delivers them in times of trouble. The Lord protects and preserves them. They are counted among the blessed in the land. He does not give them over to the desire of their foes. The Lord sustains them on their sick bed and restores them from their illness, in their time of illness. And that's the word of the Lord. That first part especially, blessed are those who have regard for the weak. Well, the idea is that God considers us blessed and will bless us as we have regard, meaning care and concern and action for those who are in a spot of weakness, a disadvantage, where they don't have what they need to thrive. It says that the Lord delivers them in times of trouble. So God is saying basically, one of the best things you can do is stop paying attention merely to yourself, pay attention to others. If they're in a tough spot, do something about it. This is in the fabric of the kingdom of God. God does this for us. God has regard for the weak. That's you and I. God does restore this person in times of trouble, and it's Jesus. We're talking about Jesus, obviously. Look at how Paul describes it. He says, Jesus made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. When Jesus becomes a servant, who's he serving? He's serving the weak. He's serving humanity. He's serving you, and he's serving me. That's the beauty of the incarnation, that Jesus becomes one of us. He puts on human flesh, and he comes to have regard for the weak and actually do something about it. He rescues us from our sin. And of course, Jesus experiences times of trouble. Jesus experiences a sick bed and illness, and Jesus also experiences restoration. So you can see that this Psalm 41, has already come to pass. Of course, it's pointing to Jesus, but it's also reminding us that you and I must follow in his footsteps and do the things that he did, including having regard for the weak, that we need to actually do something about it. I was talking to my boys yesterday morning about this idea of humility and greatness. Greatness in our world is based on how well can you build your brand and how good can you make yourself look, how many people will watch, how many people will click. That is not the path to greatness, because if everybody's doing that, nobody's being helped. Rather, this is what St. Basil says, it is part of a truly great man not merely to be equal to great things, but also to make little things great by his own power. In other words, to use our strength to help somebody else in weakness. That if we're here and they're there, we do this, where we go down here, we lift them up, and now all of a sudden, everybody's in a better spot. How much strength do we honestly need? I mean, the more God gives us, the more he requires of us, right? To whom much is given, much is required. Jesus does this for us. And we see this even in our own family as our older boys play with our younger son. You know, they're 18 and 17 and 15. And when a 6-year-old says, can we play Super Smash? Guess what those guys do? They actually play with him. They actually step down to his level and play and let him win sometimes, and that whole thing. Or if they go out and they play football or basketball, you would think that all these large men would crush this little 6-year-old down to a pancake, but they let him win. And it only costs them this much strength, but the benefit to the 6-year-old is immense. That's what it is to, like Basil says, not be equal, but make little things great by our own power. It's like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, Jesus most of all said, the greatest among you will be your servant. Fort hose, for those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What are you going to do with your strength today? Go and have regard for the weak, because Jesus, in his greatness, has regard for me and for you, the weakest, and now in him we are made strong. That's RadCast.